On this video, I am going to be reading Galatians chapter 1, and I'm reading starting at verse 10. I have been working my way through this chapter looking at the grammar with commentary, and I worked my way up to verse 10, where Paul is describing how that there's no other gospel. If anyone brings any other gospel than that which he has preached, let him be anathema. In other words, brought under God's judgment. So, I believe basically we had finished verse 10, and I'll just review it and then go on. For now, am I persuading men or God? If I am seeking to please men, if yet I was pleasing men, or am I seeking to please men? If yet I was pleasing men, I would not be a servant of Christ. We stopped there where we looked at patho is the present indicative active first person singular from patho. In other words, for now, if I am persuading men, or am I persuading men or God? It's a question. Or am I seeking? Zeto is from zeteo, present indicative active first person singular. Am I seeking to please men? Areskein is the present active infinitive from aresko, to please. If yet I was pleasing men, areskon is the imperfect indicative active first person singular from aresko, then I would not be a servant of Christ. Amen is the imperfect indicative active first person singular from me. Here we have a second class condition. If that was the case, I would not be a servant of Christ, but that's not the case, I think. So it's second class condition. So as we move on, Paul then talks about how he became an apostle. Genorizo garhumen adafoi, ta euangelion ta euangelisten hup amu, hate ugestin kata anthropon. For I'm revealing to you, brethren, the gospel which was preached by me, that it was not, or that it is not, according to a man. Genorizo is the present indicative active first person singular from genorizo. I'm revealing to you, brethren, the euangelion which was preached, ta euangelisten, is the present participle, active participle neuter singular from euangelizo, nominative neuter singular, where I reveal to you, brethren, the gospel which was preached by me, that it is not according to a man. Estin is your present indicative active third person singular from a me. Then ude gar ego para anthropo, parelaven auta hute edidaxe ala di apocalypsa o Jesu Christu. For neither did I receive it from a man, nor was I taught it, but it came through revelation of Jesus Christ. For I did not receive it. Parelaban is par from parlambano. It's the aorist indicative active first person singular from parlambano. I did not receive it, neither was I taught it. Edidathane is the aorist indicative passive first person singular from didasco. Neither was I taught it, but through the revelation of Jesus Christ. I think of eleuthe, saluthe, and so forth. Your aorist indicative passive is used here. In other words, I did not receive it from a man, nor was I taught it, but I received the good news through the revelation that Jesus revealed to me. I take Jesu Christu to be a subjective genitive. Jesus is the one revealing it. Then verse 13. Ekusa te gartain amen anas sraphein pota into judaismo hate kat huperbalein adeokan tain ecclesian tuthau kai aporthun altain. For you heard of my former manner of life in Judaism, that very abundantly I was seeking, pursuing the church of God, and I was seeking to destroy it. Notice akusate is from aorist indicative active from akuo, second person plural. For you heard my former manner of life in Judaism, that abundantly kashu perbalin, that is, going beyond, or abundantly, a diokon I was persecuting. This is from dioko. It's the imperfect indicative active first person singular. I was persecuting the church of God, and I was eporthun from portheo. I was seeking to destroy it. So I was persecuting the church of God and trying to destroy it. Another imperfect indicative active first person singular from portheo. Then, and kai praekapton into judaismo huper palus sune lekiotas into gunemu perisateros zelotes huparkon ton patrikon mu paradoxos. Basically, he said, I was advancing in Judaism beyond my contemporaries in my race, being more abundantly zealous for the traditions of my fathers. Praekapten is from prakapto, imperfect indicative active first person singular. I was advancing in Judaism above many of my contemporaries in my race, being more zealous for the tradition of my fathers, of being exceedingly zealous. Huparkon is from huparko, present participle nominative masculine singular from huparko. So in other words, I was advancing. And Paul was a teacher. He had been trained under Gamaliel, and he was advancing, he's saying. But then it pleased God. Hata de judake sin hata as aforisas me ekolias me tras mu, kai kalesas diates caritas autu. That is, when it pleased God, who separated me out of my mother's womb and called me through his grace to reveal his son in me. Notice, it pleased God. Eudokesin is from eudokeo, the aorist indicative active third person singular, the one who separated me from aphorissos, who set me apart from aphorizo, aorist active participle nominative masculine singular from aphorizo, who set me apart out of the womb of my mother, and who called me. Kalessos is your aorist active participle nominative masculine singular from kaleo, who called me through his grace to reveal his son in me. In other words, Paul's saying it pleased God. He was the one who separated me out of my mother's womb. Same with Jeremiah. That's when he was called to be an apostle. And it's a beautiful thought that God separates all of us out of our mother's womb and calls us, if we're called, by Christ to serve him in whatever gift he gives us. I think this is a beautiful thought here about two things: about the sanctity of life from the mother's womb, and also about how God has already predestined people to be his ministers, like Paul. Then he did that to reveal apocalypsai ton huion tu en amoy, hena euangelizomai auton in tois ethnosin, eutheos u prasanethemen sarki kai haimati. That is, to when he did this, to reveal his son in me. Apocalypsai is your aorist active infinitive from apocalypto, to reveal his son in me in order that I might preach him among the Gentiles. Here we have a purpose clause with the subjunctive euangelizomai, present subjunctive middle from euangelizo, that in order that I might preach him among the Gentiles. Immediately, I did not confer with flesh and blood. Prosenethemen is from prosenetithemi. It's the aorist indicative middle from prosenetithemi. I did not confer with flesh and blood. In other words, I didn't go to someone else and get this euangelion, this gospel. Neither ude and neothan eis Yerusalema prostus praemu apostolus ala pelthan eis Arabian taipalen hu peps hu strepsa eis Damascus. Neither did I go up into Jerusalem to those apostles before me. I didn't get this from other apostles, he said. Aneothon is the aorist indicative active first person singular from anerkamai. I did not go up unto Jerusalem to the apostles who were apostles before me to get the gospel, but I departed. This is from aperkamai, aorist indicative active first person singular from aperkamai. I departed into Arabia, and again I returned into Damascus. Hupestrapsa is from hupastrepho, aorist indicative active first person singular. So what Paul's doing, he's laying out the fact that he didn't get this gospel from anyone else. It was given to him by revelation, by the Lord, and who had separated him from his mother's womb and set him apart, and he became the apostle to the Gentiles. It was a special calling that God had predestined Paul to fulfill. And Paul wants to stress the fact that he didn't get any kind of help from anyone else. And he then goes on, and I'll just stop here, but he didn't go to Jerusalem to visit Cephas or the other apostles. He didn't do any of that. And he's talking about how the Lord uniquely taught him and gave him the gospel. Otherwise, he was headed in a whole different direction. And our prayer is that the Lord will do that to people that are going in a different direction and bring the good news and see people's lives turned around. That should be our prayer as we share the evangelion, the good news, with others.